You already know what animals look like. You learned them young. You've seen the photographs. You know their sizes, their shapes, their place in the natural order. There is a comfort in that, a quiet certainty that the living world follows rules you understand. But there are animals alive on this planet right now that do not fit those rules. Not slightly larger than expected. Not impressively big for their species. We are talking about creatures that exist at a scale your brain was not designed to process. Animals so far outside what we consider normal that researchers who have studied them for decades still describe their first encounter using one word: impossible. 18 of them, documented, verified, still out there. This is where we begin. Number 18. The American alligator. Most people who encounter an American alligator describe something manageable. A long, low animal at the water's edge. Dangerous, certainly, but comprehensible. Then, there are the records. In the southeastern United States, in the swamps, river systems, and shallow coastal lagoons that stretch from the Carolinas to Texas, American alligators have been documented reaching lengths of over 20 feet and weights exceeding 450 pounds. Not in prehistoric records, not in disputed field reports. In living specimens measured. What makes this more unsettling is not simply the size, it is the patience. An alligator of this scale has likely been accumulating mass for over 50 years. It has outlasted every natural predator in its environment. At a certain point, its territory is not contested. It simply is. Some researchers suggest that the true upper limit of alligator size in isolated freshwater systems has never been accurately measured, because the largest individuals rarely surface in the presence of observers. Number 17. The white rhinoceros. There are 5 rhinoceros species left on Earth. The white rhinoceros is the largest of them. It is also one of the most heavily targeted animals in the history of organized wildlife crime. And yet, against every rational expectation, it has persisted, carrying on its face a horn that can grow to over 4 feet in length, accumulating at a rate of roughly 3 inches per year. Female white rhinos use those horns to shield their young during attacks. Males use them in territorial combat with rivals. Both use them simply by existing as a signal to everything around them about what kind of animal they are. An adult white rhino can weigh over 5,000 pounds. When one moves, the ground responds. What is difficult to account for is the gap between how aggressively this animal has been hunted and how many remain. Some conservation estimates now point to a slow population recovery in protected ranges. The horn that nearly destroyed the species may, in the end, be what preserved public interest long enough to save it. Number 16. The Chinese rat snake. The name suggests something ordinary. The Chinese rat snake is common across much of East and Southeast Asia. It is active during daylight hours, which means it is frequently observed more so than most large constrictors. Researchers who study it do not describe it as mysterious or elusive. They describe it as unsettling, at full length, approaching 18 feet in some recorded specimens. It is not the size alone that tends to disturb observers. It is the eyes, disproportionately large for a daylight, active snake. The visual apparatus of the Chinese rat snake suggests sensitivity beyond what its hunting patterns require. Some herpetologists have noted that the eye structure more closely resembles that of a crepuscular or even nocturnal predator. Why an animal that hunts in open daylight carries the optical design of a night hunter remains, as of current research, without a complete explanation. It moves through sunlit terrain, watching in ways that feel designed for the dark. Number 15. The bluntnosed sixgill shark. 6 gills, not 5. Most modern sharks carry 5 gill slits, an evolutionary refinement that dates back hundreds of millions of years. The bluntnosed sixgill shark carries 6. It also carries a body plan that has remained largely unchanged since before the dinosaurs existed. Growing to over 16 feet, it is the largest of its immediate relatives. The reason for this, some researchers suggest, is straightforward and quietly disturbing. Most of its closest evolutionary cousins are extinct. The sixgill did not outcompete its relatives. It outlasted them. It operates primarily in deep water, descending to depths exceeding 6,000 feet, occasionally surfacing at night in patterns that researchers are still working to fully understand. It is not rare, but it is rarely seen. An animal that survived 5 mass extinctions, living mostly beyond human observation, carrying a body design that has not needed to change in over 200 million years. Something about that timeline refuses to feel entirely comfortable. Number 14. The king cobra, 18 feet. That is the verified maximum length for a king cobra, making it not only the longest venomous snake in the world, but the longest venomous animal of any kind currently documented on Earth. It lives across South and Southeast Asia, in forests and grasslands and river systems. It hunts other snakes, including, when the opportunity presents, other venomous species. The toxin delivered by a single bite carries enough neurotoxic load to kill an adult Asian elephant. Not theoretically, not extrapolated from laboratory data. This has been observed in the field. What makes the king cobra more difficult to categorize than most dangerous animals is its behavior. It does not typically flee from humans. In certain documented encounters, it has followed observers, calmly, persistently, at full extension, moving with a speed that contradicts its size. Some herpetologists who work directly with king cobras describe a quality in the animal that they struggle to name. Something in its behavior that reads less like instinct and more like assessment. Up until this point, what we have described are large animals, impressive, documented, comprehensible in their scale. From here, the sizes we discuss begin to require something more than a straightforward description. Number 13. The hippopotamus. They are semi-aquatic, which means that most of what a hippopotamus is, most of its mass, most of its power, most of its capacity for motion exists below the waterline. Hippos are among the 3 largest land mammals alive. Alongside the rhinoceros and the elephant, they represent the final tier of terrestrial megafauna that has survived into the modern era. An adult male can weigh over 3,000 pounds. Much of that weight is submerged, invisible, deceptively absent from casual observation. What is frequently misunderstood about hippos is their speed over short distances on land. A hippopotamus can sustain speeds approaching 19 miles per h-hour. This is not a slow animal that happens to be large. This is an animal with a mass exceeding a small automobile, capable of acceleration that outpaces most humans at full sprint. There are river systems in sub-Saharan Africa where observing hippos from the water is considered among the highest risk wildlife encounters on the continent. Not because they are large, but because the water conceals how close they already are. Number 12. The tiger shark. Tiger sharks are among the few shark species documented to consume almost anything. Sea turtles, marine birds, dolphins, other sharks. License plates. A full suit of armor was reportedly recovered from inside one. The stomach contents of documented tiger sharks read less like a feeding record and more like an inventory of everything that entered the water near them. At lengths approaching 18 feet and in possession of some of the most powerful jaws in the ocean, capable of shearing through sea turtle shell, which is among the most structurally resistant biological materials in marine environments. The tiger shark occupies a category beyond apex predator. It occupies the category of organism that marine biologists sometimes describe using the phrase ecologically indifferent, meaning it does not distinguish between prey and non-prey. Everything that enters its range is assessed as a potential resource at 18 feet. Very little falls outside that range. Number 11. The saltwater crocodile. Saltwater crocodiles should not be in the open sea. No freshwater predator should be. The physiology, the behavioral patterns, the evolutionary pressures that shape a crocodilian. None of them point toward deep ocean travel as a survival strategy. And yet saltwater crocodiles have been documented hundreds of miles offshore, in open water, moving between island systems across stretches of ocean that no land-based predator should be capable of navigating. They exceed 20 feet in length. They have been observed taking water buffalo from shorelines, pulling large sharks beneath the surface. and in several documented cases, taking prey from boats. Some researchers believe the saltwater crocodile is more capable of long-distance ocean movement than any previous model predicted. There are coastal regions in Australia and Southeast Asia where the perimeter of danger, the zone in which one might encounter a saltwater crocodile, extends significantly further into the water than official warnings suggest. The question of exactly how far offshore these animals regularly travel remains as of current research. What happened next changed everything in how researchers understood the upper boundary of animal size. The first half of this list covered animals that are large, measurably, verifiably, uncomfortably large. What follows is different. These are animals for which size becomes a structural condition, a fact of biology so extreme that it begins to alter how we understand what an animal can physically be. Number 10, the giraffe at full adult height. A giraffe stands nearly 20 feet from the ground. Its neck alone can measure 6 feet. Its heart, required to pump blood upward against gravity to a brain positioned at the apex of that extraordinary elevation, weighs roughly 25 pounds and beats powerfully enough to be heard at a distance. The giraffe's height has solved one problem: access to food sources no competing animal can reach. But it has created another. An animal of this profile has nowhere to disappear. It cannot use cover. It cannot crouch. It cannot vanish from the landscape. What it has instead is a social system built around constant vigilance. Giraffes rarely all sleep at the same time. Herds maintain a rotating watch. The tallest individuals can see threats from distances that give the group a response window measured not in seconds, but in minutes. Despite this, the mortality rate for calves in their first year, primarily from lion predation, approaches 40% in some studied populations. Height solved the food problem. It created an entirely different one. Number 9, the southern elephant seal. The order Carnivora includes every species you might imagine. Wolves, lions, bears, hyenas, every member of the cat and dog family, every seal and sea lion on Earth. The largest living member of all of them is a seal. Adult male southern elephant seals can exceed 20 feet in length and weigh over 8,000 pounds. They are not the most dangerous carnivore. They are not the fastest. They are not the most territorially aggressive in a sustained sense. But by mass, by sheer accumulated biological material, they are the pinnacle of the entire carnivore order. Every bear, every big cat, every wolf pack, all of them are smaller than the largest southern elephant seal. During breeding season, dominant males, called beachmasters, control sections of coastline and defend access to females through combat that involves direct physical collision between animals of this size. The sound of two large males in conflict carries across water. The scale of what is happening on those beaches is rarely fully communicated in wildlife documentation. Number 8, the gharial. The gharial is one of the longest crocodilians alive. In verified specimens, it reaches nearly 20 feet in length. But it is not designed for the world it currently inhabits. Its snout, long, extremely narrow, lined with interlocking needle-like teeth, is optimized for a river ecosystem that was substantially larger and more fish, dense than what exists in the Ganges and Brahmaputra systems today. The gharial was built for a prehistoric river environment. It has persisted, but the system it evolved to exploit has contracted around it. Young gharials eat insects, frogs, small fish. Adults eat larger fish using that specialized snout with a lateral thrashing motion that stuns prey in the water column before securing it. What remains in the historical record is a population that once stretched across the entire Indo-Gangetic plain. What exists now is a remnant, a large, ancient, specialized animal surviving in a landscape that no longer fits its original design. It is still here, but something about what it represents is already gone. And this is where the explanation begins to fall apart, because from this point the animals we discuss are no longer just large. They are large in a way that rearranges the terms. Number 7. The green anaconda. No animal in the world has been more consistently lied about. Field reports, local accounts, traveler stories from the Amazon basin. The green anaconda has accumulated more exaggerated size claims than possibly any other animal in human history. 30 feet, 40 feet. Unverifiable reports measuring into the 50s. Set aside the exaggerations, the documented reality is this: female green anacondas, which are substantially larger than males, have been measured at verified lengths approaching 25 feet with body masses exceeding 500 pounds. This is not exaggeration. This is the conservative peer-reviewed record. At this size, the green anaconda is the heaviest snake alive. It moves through the river systems of South America with a physical presence that leaves drag marks visible from above. When it hunts, ambushing from shallow water, seizing prey and constricting before drowning it in the shallows. What it is capable of taking is not limited to small animals. Caimans, large deer, in documented cases, adult cattle. What is difficult to account for is how effectively an animal of this mass can become invisible in shallow water. Number 6. The orca. Orcas are not whales. They are the largest members of the dolphin family. But a distinction that matters, because dolphins are, as a group, cognitively complex, socially organized, and capable of behavioral strategies that most large predators are not. An adult male orca can reach 30 feet in length and weigh 6 tons. But what distinguishes orcas from every other large predator on the list is not size. It is documented behavior. Orca populations in different regions have developed distinct hunting strategies. Some optimized for fish, some for marine mammals, some for sharks, that appear to be culturally transmitted. Young orcas learn from older individuals. Different populations hunt differently, using techniques that have been observed nowhere else in their species range. In the waters around South Africa, when orcas are present, great white sharks leave. Not temporarily for months. The redistribution of an apex predator across hundreds of miles of ocean simply because a different predator arrived was considered theoretically implausible until it was documented multiple times. The orca did not displace them by being larger. It displaced them by being more organized. Number 5. The beluga street urchin. There are fish alive today that were alive during the time of Napoleon. The beluga sturgeon can live to 120 years. In that time, a single individual can grow to nearly 20 feet and approach 1.5 tons in weight. It hatches in freshwater river systems, spends the bulk of its adult life in the brackish and saline waters of enclosed seas, and returns each season to spawn in the rivers where it began. It has been doing this in essentially the same form for over 200 million years. The body plan of a beluga sturgeon predates most of the fish species alive today. It predates the Atlantic Ocean as it currently exists. It has survived glaciation cycles, mass extinction events, and the gradual transformation of virtually every river system it uses. What is difficult to account for is not its survival. It is what its survival suggests, that somewhere in these enormous ancient fish, a biological template exists that has simply never needed updating. The largest specimens documented today were likely born during the early 20th century. They are still growing. Number 4. The green sawfish. The green sawfish looks like something a biologist would design to prove a theoretical point. Its rostrum, the elongated toothed extension that projects from its head, is not a jaw. It is not a weapon in the conventional sense. It is a sensory and hunting instrument lined with electroreceptor pores that can detect the electrical fields produced by prey, buried in estuary sediment, and capable, in an active hunt, of moving laterally through the water column with enough force to stun or disorient fish at close range. An adult green sawfish can reach 20 feet in length. Its body profile, wide pectoral fins, a flattened form, reveals it as a ray rather than a shark, which is not immediately apparent in open water. What makes the green sawfish more unsettling than its profile suggests is its preferred habitat. estuaries, river mouths, the transitional zones where freshwater and saltwater meet, exactly where human activity is most concentrated in coastal regions. An animal this size, with this sensory apparatus, operating in shallow water where rivers meet the sea. It is not dangerous to humans in any documented aggressive sense. But it is there. Quiet, sensing. Number 3, Baird's beaked whale. Baird's beaked whale is among the least understood large animals alive. It belongs to a family, the beaked whales, that has been studied for over a century and remains, by the assessment of the researchers who specialize in it, largely unknown. These are animals that can exceed 40 feet in length, dive to depths exceeding 1.5 miles, remain submerged for over an hour on a single breath, and navigate environments so dark and pressurized that the physiological mechanisms they use to survive them are still being documented. Males live longer than females in most beaked whale species, an inversion of the typical mammalian longevity pattern that has not been fully explained. Strandings of beaked whales have revealed physical evidence of injuries consistent with sonar interference. Some researchers suggest that certain naval sonar frequencies disrupt the navigation systems these animals use in deep water, causing disorientation and fatal beaching events. The unsettling implication of this, if accurate, is that these animals, diving to depths and distances we cannot follow, have a vulnerability to technology they cannot hear, detect, or avoid. They are at the edge of what we know, and something we built may already be reaching them there. Number 2, the North Pacific right whale. There are roughly 30 North Pacific right whales left, not 30,000, not 3,030, growing to over 55 feet and possibly exceeding 80 tons in mass. This is one of the largest animals alive. It is also one of the closest to functional extinction of any large mammal on Earth. Female right whales produce their first calf at an average age of 8 to 10 years. Gestation lasts approximately a year. Calves nurse for close to another year before weaning. The reproductive cycle is slow, deliberate, and biologically efficient. For a world in which adult mortality was low, the world changed. Commercial whaling in the 19th and early 20th centuries reduced the North Pacific right whale from a viable population to what researchers now describe using the clinical phrase non-viable remnant. There may not be enough individuals left to maintain genetic diversity over multiple generations. What exists now is a population so small that individual whales have been catalogued, named, and monitored. Researchers know specific animals. They track their movements, their health, their reproductive outcomes. Some of those monitored individuals have not been sighted in years. Number 1, the blue whale, not the largest animal alive. The largest animal that has ever lived in the entire documented fossil record across every mass extinction, every geological era, every evolutionary branch that has produced complex multicellular life on this planet. Nothing has ever been larger than a blue whale. In the southern hemisphere, verified specimens have reached 100 feet in length and weights approaching 150 tons. The heart of a blue whale is the size of a small automobile. Its arteries are wide enough for a human adult to crawl through. Its call, a low-frequency vocalization below the range of human hearing, can travel thousands of miles through ocean water. It filters krill, billions of them, daily, through a sieve of baleen plates. The largest animal in the history of life on Earth sustains itself on organisms measured in centimeters. Blue whale populations were reduced by an estimated 70 to 90% during the 20th century whaling period. Current estimates suggest somewhere between 10 and 25,000 individuals remain, a fraction of the pre-industrial population, slowly recovering in ways that researchers describe with cautious optimism rather than certainty. There are places in the ocean where blue whales gather in numbers still too small for what they once were, where the water around them remains quiet in a way that wasn't always the case. They are still here, but the ocean they move through is not the ocean they evolved in. And what we hear when we listen below the surface, those deep traveling calls moving through dark water across distances, no other animal can reach. Maybe fewer voices than it sounds like. What you have just encountered are not the largest animals that ever existed in mythology, in legend, in the exaggerations of returning travelers. These are the documented ones, the measured, verified, peer-reviewed record of what is alive right now. And the record is incomplete. The deep ocean has been explored less thoroughly than the surface of Mars, and the river systems of the Amazon basin still yield species unknown to science at a rate that suggests our inventory of what lives there is substantially unfinished. The deep diving behavior of beaked whales, the offshore movements of saltwater crocodiles, the true upper range of green anaconda size in unexplored regions of the interior. None of these questions have closed answers. What was described here was the surface layer of a subject that descends considerably further. The animals at the bottom of that descent, whatever they are, have not yet been fully found. Subscribe to Discovery Files. Every file we open leads somewhere deeper.